What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy Storyseller Jet with another episode of the That's So Fire Talk Show. And today I have a special guest with me on the show and has an incredible journey. And what was it, like 2 weeks ago? We had the opportunity to chat for about an hour. Incredible journey from $2,500 to now going to be making over $25 million. So today we're gonna be talking about the real stories, the strategies, and the results that he's accomplished. So, without further ado, would like to introduce Rick Nelson to the show. Let's go. How's it going,
Oh
man?
my God, awesome, awesome. I'm so glad to be here. So excited. So excited to share the story and chat. It's always fun, get inspired and you have new ideas, new thoughts. So I love it.
Absolutely. So, typically, when we start the show, I typically like to ask the guests, to introduce themselves, and then we're gonna dive into the origin story a little bit.
Right. I love it. Yeah. Rick Nelson, born in Tampa, Florida. So I'm fourth generation. So it's been awesome. My kids live here, go to USF.
Mm.
So I guess they like us too. Like I liked my parents and been with my wife since college and have done the grind, right? So started off, graduated college and just got a job and eventually made our way to entrepreneurship and now found our way to working together at the fulfillment lab that we've been doing for 14 years and this has been the journey. Yeah, so it's awesome.
Fantastic. Before we dive into that, would you mind describing a little bit about what is the Fulfillment Lab? What are some of the things that you are doing
Yeah,
with that?
yeah. So it's e-commerce order fulfillment. So essentially we integrate with all the platforms out there like Shopify, WooCommerce, UltraCart, Amazon, Walmart, TikTok Shop, and all the sellers that are doing omni-channel selling. So nowadays you can't just sell on one site, right? You're selling all over the place, right? And so it's really hard for them to manage inventory and manage all these things, all these selling. Well, we bring it all together to one place, and then we have multiple facilities around the world to the United States, and we're able to get those orders, warehouse their product, pick it, pack it, ship it direct to consumer for them. But what's cool about us is it's not really like how we want to do it, and it has to fit like our model. We really say, hey, what made you successful, and how do you want it packaged? As nuanced as you need it to be, as custom as you need it to be. Let's figure out a way to do that and do that at scale. So we
Yeah.
want to make sure to keep customization there so there's the maximum perceived value to the end consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. This is incredible. Before we started the show, we were chatting a little bit, and a lot of people say that I have a problem of ordering a bunch of stuff in Amazon. Like literally every single day, there is a package by the door. Like if you walk in the studio and see all the stuff that we have, it's like every single day there's something new that's being delivered here. And when we were chatting, we were saying that like some of the things that we actually bought probably was processed through maybe one of your facilities and all of that. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, it's cool. You never know, where it comes from. We partner with, Walmart, Amazon. Sometimes it comes from them. Sometimes it can come from us. And they, it's a lot. Logistics is a lot of moving parts. And so really everyone's working together, to ultimately get at the consumer on their expectations and make them happy. That's the goal.
That's
That's what
awesome.
makes the world go round there.
That's really cool. Um, yeah, incredible. So let's start by talking about the one of my favorite topics because I think it's one of the coolest things to see how people has progressed over their entrepreneur or business journey. So now that you are running a $25 million business, how did you get started?
Yeah, well, really, I started off in sales, right? So when I graduated college, I had an opportunity to work in a manufacturing environment for a short period of time. So I really got exposed to a lot of what happens on the back end of the fulfillment lab through
Mm.
that. Then very quickly, I was like, okay, what's my path where I can control my own destiny? Entrepreneurship, but that's a huge risk. How do you start doing that from day one? So I said, let's do sales, right? So unlimited income potential. That's what they say, right? The ball's in your court, right? So that's what I did. So in selling and working for different companies, you really get an education because you're selling to C-level executives. So when you realize, you start learning how they buy, what their needs are, you're getting education of like how to run a business, right? So that's really it all started, is it's really listening to every experience that you have. So if you're trying to kind of shove your philosophies down everyone's throat all the time, there's no growth.
Yeah.
But if you really spend the time to listen, then I think that's where I got a lot of that from, right? So it was really just listening to individuals that own businesses that have been through, what I've gone through now, but then I was 20s, early 30s, and take all of that and apply what I loved, what I didn't love, make sure not to repeat the things that I hated, and implement the things that I loved, right? And then you learn and you grow and you ask questions, and that's really the evolution of it.
Yeah, incredible. So you had your first stint at sales. What was the biggest lesson, would you say, that you have learned from your time doing sales?
So, first of all, how awesome no's are, right? So, no's are the best because it lets you move on to the yeses. So, if you can't accept rejection and you don't realize how much you learn from it, there's a clip, Conor McGregor, I think everyone saw it when he lost his first fight, and he was like all happy and everyone was mad, your fans, you disappointed them and you're celebrating. He said, now I can go to the drawing board and I learned something from this. So I'm going to come back better, right? So it's losses, adversity, it knows. So every no is that much closer to a yes. So as soon as you get that in your head, and it's not just a no, but learn from it, right?
Mhm.
So you can't do the same thing over and over and expect the
Different
same
result.
result, right? You can expect a different result. It's going to be the same, right?
Yeah,
So that no is super positive. And if you can really believe that, not tell yourself that, because it's easy to tell yourself that. If you can really believe that, understand that, I think the sales journey kind of begins for you.
that's a great advice, and I'm really glad that you shared that. So, what would you say to the entrepreneurs that are completely afraid of getting those no's? What advice would you share with them?
Yeah, love them, love the no's, and learn from them, right? And just know, when you're asking the question, have you put yourself in a position of risk to begin with? If you're already in a defensive position when you're trying to start a business, it's impossible, right? So, I was lucky because, really I've started two successful businesses. One, with my wife leading it while I was working, and then once she started that business, I was able to then start the fulfillment lab while she had that business. But at no time was I financially at risk completely. We had a backup plan.
Hmm.
So if you don't have a backup plan and then you're going all in, now you kind of are needing a yes. And if you need a yes, and then you get the no, then you start forcing things and you start making decisions that aren't in the rhythm of really where you want it to go. And so I think that's kind of the key that I would say is make sure that you could survive enough no's and you can go down that journey to learn that it's not going to put pressure on you to have to force something that wasn't the original plan. Force it. The
Yeah,
plan's going to change.
yeah,
It's never the original plan exactly, but it should be natural flow into an evolution, not something that's forced out of a necessity because you didn't have kind of safeguards in place. So
yeah, yeah.
timing.
So you just shared that before you go to business, you need to make sure that obviously don't take that huge risk where maybe a month or two later to completely go out of business, that you have to have a nest egg. What for the people that have like a really great idea that they can pursue, that has potential, that wants to jump entrepreneurship, that wants to jump to do some entrepreneurial things, um, and they do not have that nest egg, what advice would you give them to get started with?
It's the evaluation of how are you going to get customers, right? Because if you don't have the nest egg, then you're going to have to get revenue. And if you're going to get revenue, it's going to have to come from customers. And so an idea is great, but there's one or two things that are going to happen. You're going to sell that product to someone, or someone's going to buy it from you. Well, no one's going to buy it from you till you have a proven track record that you're selling it. So you've got to figure out how you're going to go to market. It's the number one. I hate to say it, because creativity, ingenuity is so important part of, I think, capitalism and what we do. But you've got to have the market first. I mean, I could have someone who doesn't have a very creative idea, but knows how to go to market and the best idea ever, and you'll never hear that idea because he doesn't know how to go to market. So understand the go-to-market strategy, the sales plan, your target audience, and make sure that you actually can deliver to that audience. And then what kind of nest egg do you need? So, $2,300, right? So you said, okay, well, how could you start on that? I could start on that because I had clients lined up, right? I already knew that I had 4 or 5 clients that were ready for my services if I could deliver on the technology front. So there were certain things that I needed to develop and deliver. And if I could prove that out, they guaranteed that they would go with me. And so I could build off of that. That's why I said yes to start it, right? And I was able to take the $2,300, invest minimally, and then ride off of that revenue to continue the growth.
Yeah.
It starts with the customers.
100%. Love that. So you just shared a little bit that you started with $2,300 and now you are in, by the end of the year, you'll make over $25 million. So can you walk me through that original journey of, like, I guess, like, finding that $2,300 and, like, what pushed you to, I guess, like, start that business with just that little money?
Yeah. So it was a technology need in the industry. So if you go and you look at warehousing and fulfillment 14, 15 years ago, you look at e-commerce and where it was kind of non-existent. It was people were starting to buy online, but they weren't completely comfortable. They hadn't made that shift. And so what you had is a lot of fulfillment companies that were really the old school way, which worked great, but they didn't really invest in any type of technology, reporting, analytics. None of that was in place. And so I had a company who said, I want to have visibility for all the clients I refer to you. I want to have full visibility on all the products that you warehouse on my behalf for them. And there's no technology platform out there that's doing that. Right. So I said, so you're saying if I could build this and give you this insight, he goes, every client of mine will be yours from here on if you can deliver this. And so that's the answer. I mean, I don't need a sexy idea. I mean, did I ever think fulfillment is sexy? Like now, I mean, it's awesome. And it's the challenge, all orders come in by noon, ship same day. Okay. We shipped 40 something thousand packages out yesterday. So imagine what you're doing. Like in the morning, you're just like, okay, wait, boom, 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 go, and you just have hundreds of people making that happen. It's nuts, but it's cool. It's exciting. It's fun to watch it happen. But that's what made me say yes. And what made me take the leap was, once again, they had the clients and I showed him, this is the dashboard, this is what we're going to deliver, this is the API. And he said, that's what I want.
Yeah.
And we delivered and he delivered.
Yeah.
And that's the origin story right there. And then, building upon the wants. So he was a partner, but he's a client. So you always think about it in a sense. Yeah. He was a client. And so I had a commitment from that day on, every interaction, every vendor, every client, to learn from them on what they want and build it.
Yeah.
Right. So GFS, that's our global fulfillment software for the Fulfillment Lab. It's grown by the needs of all the e-commerce sellers and all the e-commerce partners. So like, where did it come from? Well, I'm not selling every day, right? But what do they need to be successful? And based on what they need, I keep adding those features. And the next thing you know, when someone comes to look at it, they go, hey, can you do this? And I was like, well, yes.
Well, I've already done that.
It's already there. As a matter of fact, this is how we do it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we never thought of it that way. Well, it's 14 years of saying, what do you need? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Right. And a commitment to the investing back into what started me. Right. Yeah. So like, that's the thing. Like, what started the Fulfillment Lab? A request for a need from a vendor. And to this day, I'm still implementing features that vendors are requesting.
Yeah.
You can't get away from where you started.
Yeah.
I think people try to get too cute.
Mm-hmm.
We're the foundation's still there.
Yeah. So you started the business with $2,300 and now in process to make $25 million. What are some of the things that you did along the way to ensure that you grew that business to that level?
Yeah. Surround yourself with the right people. Uh, Unfortunately, right? And this is not a positive thing. I like to typically talk about positive things, but you outgrow people too, right? So the business grows, and then sometimes you realize the person that was great, they just can't grow with you. And so sometimes you have to say, "Hey, I love everything you did, man. You were here from day one, but we got to go to the next step, and maybe it's not for you, right?" And so the hard conversations. I have a passion for where it's like the film has its own entity and it's responsible for people now. And as soon as it becomes responsible for people, so and it's not me anymore. Now it kind of changes the game in your head of how you're looking at things. It's no longer what do I want, but what's going to keep this entity alive because so many people are dependent upon it. And so it's like a natural progression. You look at a plan, soil, water, what does it want? It's no longer, oh, I wanted to put it in the corner because it looks pretty. All of a sudden you start realizing, wow, this is a huge plant now. And now it's going to tell me what it needs. Or maybe I need to move it from here to the window. Well, now it's too big. Need to put it outside.
Mm-hmm.
Like I loved it inside and that's what I wanted. And it was good at the time, but it's not good anymore. Right. So I need to put it outside. I need to grow with it,
Mm-hmm.
and it can't let it outgrow me. I need to change the pot, right? I love that planter. Oh my gosh, my mom gave me that planter for the pot, so I'm going to let the plant die because it outgrows it. It's kind of a simple analogy, but it really is kind of the key to like success, right? You outgrow things, and you got to evolve with it, and you got to give it what it needs, and it'll flourish, right? And you got to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, 100%. So I'm sure that along the way, from $2,300 to 25 million, that you've encountered some really hard time. What was the biggest challenge that you faced growing your business from $2,300 to 25 million?
yeah, so we had a huge account receivable issue, so basically uh everything was running great. I got all the packages out. Integrations were tight, dashboards were great. We just weren't great at collecting money from our clients. So you go in your head, how you just don't think that's something someone's not going to do. I know that sounds very naive, but you have so many things that you're worrying about, and you're trying to provide excellent service. And next thing you have 4 or 5 clients, and they have $2 million, and in 3 or 4 weeks it got away from you. And to them, it's maybe easier for them to find another fulfillment provider than to pay their debt. And here you are, right? So that was rough, right? So you had to write that off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I never overextend myself. I plan, I look at my numbers. I always have 6 to 8 months of all bills covered, so you got to be prepared, right?
Yeah.
So, but that was terrible. It was terrible because there were people I had relationships with, and I delivered everything that I promised. And you don't want to get tainted. And then like your next interaction, judge someone on a past interaction. So that's what you want to do, but sometimes that's hard. So that was rough mentally, relationship wise, to have some people that you were close with kind of look at business in that way and say, oh, business can be ruthless. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
rough. That was a rough one emotionally.
Yeah.
COVID was a little rough too, with all trade shows going away. That's how we marketed. So our whole business was going to trade shows. We did like 12 trade shows a year. So you couldn't do that anymore. And still to this day, the trade shows aren't as So we had to reinvent our whole marketing strategy,
Yeah.
to more traditional marketing.
Yeah.
So those two probably I think are the biggest challenges that we faced.
Yeah. I would absolutely love to go deeper into like, what you're doing right now for marketing. Obviously, marketing and sales are the lifeblood of any business, and kind of seeing like, the transition from doing like, trade shows now doing, more of that. But before we move over to that, um so you had that big account receivable problem, more, than $2 million. So, what lesson did that teach you? And first of all, how did you solve that problem? And what lesson did that teach you that you are not going to make again?
Yeah. So we no longer, rely on terms. So when a package comes to be printed, it tallies up a client's all their packages and what the fee is to get it out of the door. And it runs their credit card, or runs their prepaid account, or deducts it from their ACH bank account. And when that clears, the packages go out the door. So there's no terms, right? So we can't go negative anymore. And it's all automated through the system. So, the philosophy is if someone can't pay for their product to get to the consumer after they've already sold it, they you're probably going to get in trouble down the road anyway. So all of our clients, love. I mean, they can put it on a credit card, so they have 30 days on a credit card. They can prepay it, or it can go out of their bank account. So once we automated that, receivables went out the window. So we run, if it's 1% receivables, and it's only legacy clients that have been with us for years, that we just honor that relationship. But even new clients is just not something that's necessary. So it's technology. It's always really every question you're going to ask me, like, what problem did you have and how did you solve it? And it's probably going to be like AI, technology, automation. I mean, it's going to be, pretty much not maybe not any problems with my wife, but I don't know if they've come up with that solution yet, but not at home, not with my kids doing chores.
Yeah.
But business wise, I think that's really the it's the automation, So
Yeah.
that's how we solved it. So it's
Yeah.
not a problem anymore. So
Yeah.
it went away
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of my friend Tom Kroll says all the time, revenue in first position. That means you have to do revenue generating activities, but also you need to make sure that you're collecting from those people that do business with you. What is the biggest advice that you would give to anybody watching this around revenue in first position, like, collecting cash and all of
Yeah.
that?
You feel like you're new, and you feel like you're starting, and so you feel like you're at a disadvantage, and so people know that, and so they'll use that to take advantage of your position, and so you feel like you have to give away things to get the business. And sound business people have cash flow and credit and ability to pay on time within reasonable time frame. And so I would say, don't don't let your desperate position of being new put you in a state of putting your business at risk. Kind of like what we went back to at the very beginning, right? I didn't like need the money, but you have this drive of the next level. I mean, you always need the money, but I didn't need the money for the company to stay open. I didn't need the money to pay my bills at home. But we had the next milestones we were wanting to hit, and so you say, oh, well, we're only 5 years old, and oh, he's a big customer, so I'm gonna have to say yes to everything he wants. I'll say yes to a lot of it, but if he's not financially sound with his money, then he's not going to be financially sound with so many other business decisions he's going to make that it's probably going to be a nightmare to begin with. So just don't fall into that trap that I fell into. It's okay to say, I don't have terms and I'm worth it. And you're going to use me for all these other things. And here are my options. Pick one of these.
Yeah.
And let them walk away, because it's going to be the best thing they ever did if they walk away, probably.
Yeah.
So that's what I think.
Yeah. This is great. I think there is a little bit of a lesson over here. Something that you just shared that I want to talk about is, you shared earlier that at all time you have 6 to 8 months of um, money in the bank to cover any expenses or any cover any changes that may happen. Why do you do that, and why would you encourage or teach other people to do the same?
Yeah, you never know what's ahead, right? So 6 to 8 months, minimally, so like I have more than like there's different tiers. Like even when you're making investment decisions, there's different levels of investment. When you're going diversify your portfolio, I don't think it's just about diversifying your portfolio on a risk factor, but it's liquidity, right? And the ability to get that money in situations that you need. Could it just be an opportunity? What if I had a client that came and said, "Hey, I'm going to ship 4,000 a day, but I need you to buy these 20 containers for me to give you the business." Well, I need to have the money to get the 20 containers. So it could be just for that. But you never know what economic situations are in front of you, and you can't make decisions out of desperation, right? I think we kind of keep coming back. I didn't even realize how much of my decision, like I said, we're going to be inspired
Mm,
while we're talking on things. You don't want to make decisions when you're desperate, right? And so if that bank account's low and that client comes up to you and he asks for terms, right? Who's the guy that's going to say yes when you think it should be a no?
mhm.
The guy that has 8 months worth of operating capital, or the guy who's looking to pay next, you know, his next payroll?
Mhm.
And then you just dig yourself deeper in the hole. So it really is a peace of mind to make sound decisions and to keep the health of your company where it needs to be is why you need that. Easier said than done sometimes. So like, look, did 2,500 dollars, $2,300, what operating capital was that? Like, I probably couldn't barely pay the internet and stuff. So it's not always the easiest thing to do, but you're going
Mhm.
to make decisions that probably aren't where you would have made if you had the money in the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. And also kind of give you the opportunity to select the people that you get to work with, because some other people, like, they might become a nightmare to work with, but once you have that flexibility, now you can make better decision in doing all of that and not act like in a very desperate way to gain new business.
Yep.
So
100% I agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's transition now to talk about marketing. Earlier, you mentioned that you were doing most of your marketing through going to not talk shows, going to, what do you call it?
Trade
Trade
shows. Yeah.
shows. Because that we're doing a talk show, I'm kind of still
Yes. Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
about talk shows.
I like these
You,
too, though.
you go into trade shows, and now because of COVID, you had to completely shift. Um, what are some of the things that you are currently doing to ensure that you are growing your business to a quarter to $25 million?
Yeah. That's a long answer. So I don't know how much time we have, but I'll keep it quick. I'll keep it quick. So, I mean, number one, it's the metrics. Okay. So I have a revenue operations software that sits on the front. So the timing of this and of when you're going to implement it, but it starts with the numbers, right? So if you start implementing things up front, then you're never going to know what's working and what's not. So if you have the time, you have the money to implement a revenue operations software up front where you can put pipeline projections, actuals against forecasted, and then you could take all the different marketing channels, put them up against each other, and then do your return on investment against that. Then your decisions of what you did or what you're going to do, it's somewhat easy because the data is there, right? So it's the data. Okay. So I use a company called Vasco. That's awesome. Great support. Um, so now what am I doing? So, SEO is a start, right? I've tried paid advertising, business to business, doesn't work. Paying thousands of dollars for a keyword that everyone's fighting for. So SEO on the AI side as well. There's all kinds of terms that they're using for that now, but it's now capturing them when they visit the website. So it's called de-anonymization. So it's making them not anonymous or on the website, right? And when you do that, you can convert those into lists and then utilizing those lists to do email follow-ups, as well as we have an outbound sales team that then calls them. So we can call them while they're on the site, can call them after the site, right? And follow up, and then send emails and follow through. So we do LinkedIn outreach campaigns, social media campaigns. We have a new partner of business growth and development that he worked for Shopify for 5 years. So he's talking to a bunch of e-commerce partners. So we could keep going, right? But it's at the end of the day, every one of those channels flows through the revenue operation software, and they all have a budget, an estimated return on investment, right? And a forecast against actual. And so I can just look at a dashboard and see, where are we? Leads versus qualified leads versus sales qualified leads versus deals versus starts. And I can look at the budget, and I can drill down as much as I want to each channel to know how we want to tweak where you're going to spend the money.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. It's the science behind the marketing. There's so many great marketers out there that you can plug in and test. But then how are you going to measure their performance? So I think trying to start with an engine like that, that's going to help you measure that, I think is the key to give you the understanding that you need.
Yeah. So you talk a lot about those numbers. How important is it for any business owners to know their numbers?
It's everything. I mean, I know every number. I know every number. I know every packer and how much they pack per hour and per minute, and this is the whole foundation of everything is a numbers, pieces and items and shipments and packages per hour, and like it's all numbers. Like everything's data driven. So I live in numbers, from marketing to sales to operations. So we know at 7 a.m, within 30 minutes, we know what time we're going to finish packing 40,000 packages.
Wow.
So we know how many tables we need, how many stations we need, how many pullers, packers, quality control people, stagers, how we're going to divvy it up, what gailers are going to go, what carriers are going to, and the system is taking this interpretation of numbers that we've built over time, and it's giving a lot of those answers. And so every day it's telling us, and we're looking at it, and then we're making tweaks. And then once those tweaks become a reality, then we make that part of the program, and then we start tweaking it more, right? So it's constantly tweaking, but utilizing the system to dictate our workload for us to, expand the deliverable. It's not, so you go like daycare and you say fulfillment, because my wife, that's a business she started. It was a 5,000 square foot building. We had 113 kids.
Wow.
That were there. 400 families came through a year. And I remember when we first started, we had 12 kids, right? And then summer came. And summer we had 113, and she kind of like looked at me. And I said, what? I said, we ended up with like 20 kids before the school ended. I said, we just have 5 tables of 20. We're doing nothing different. It's 5 tables of 20. It's scalable, repeatable model. What we were doing for those same 20, we're going to do for the next 4 groups of 20 as well, and just rotate through the process. And so that's the scalable, repeatable model is the key to me on everything that we do.
Yeah, I think you just shared the gold nugget over here, because a lot of people, they are just like really pushing scale. They want to grow their business. They want to make their first $1 million, but at the same time, they're not building that foundation to ensure if you do scale that you can replicate the system for you to build that foundation to continue to grow. So for anybody that is looking to scale their business, what advice would you give them as it relates to building repeatable systems?
Yeah, you know your numbers, and build a pod, build a short-term goal, of a pod that as a first milestone, and then understand that when you hit that number, probably 3/4 your way to that number, there's going to be a dip in profit, right? So what happens is when that pod is 100% full, you've maximized profit, but there's no room for growth, right? So you use all your resources and it's all churning. But one more person comes in that pod, it collapses, right? So you think so it's this cycle. You know the maximum of the pod, and you have that goal that you want to get to that pod. You want to fill a pod, and you know all the numbers that make that successful. Then as that starts approaching 3/4, then you have to start building the next pod and shifting. So now it kind of sucks, right? Because now you have 100%, but it's 50-50 with more overhead, right? So now you're not as profitable and you're at the same that you would have been at 100%, but everyone's happier. All your clients are happier. Now they get to 60%, 70%. Now at that 70% each, you're at 140 of one. You could never hit that.
Yeah.
Boom. Now they get to 80% each. You used to build the next pod. You're not doing anything. Like, I mean, I go, okay, well, what I already did the first pod. Like, you don't congratulate me on the third or the fourth or the fifth. I just did the same thing I did the first time. So it's really, really, now you're tweaking all the time, but it's really understanding that first pod and making sure that who's running that pod and how much of a specialist do you need? So if that growth requires you, let's say, and you have a special skill set, you're dead in the water, right? You can't scale. So you have to make sure that the talent required to run that pod is also scalable. So now maybe you have a manager that comes out of that pod, he can manage 4 pods. Okay, great. You pull him out now because he's running it. You can bring someone in, right? So it's evaluating talent that's required for each pod and making sure that the talent is also scalable and repeatable, right? And then, I mean, you're on easy street on the operation side. So it's all the challenges clients. And I'm going to say there's no challenge that the Fulfillment Lab has ever brought my way bringing new business on. It's always the hardest part, bringing new business on. But on the growth side, I think it's simple. If you commit to that, it seems simple to me.
Yeah. People typically say that the hardest thing I'm going to rephrase that question. People typically say that it's the hardest to make your first $1 million. What are some of the things that you did to that helped you make your first $1 million?
Boy, yeah, I know. I never even, that's a tough one. It's a retirement for me, right? So like along the way, it's providing for your family and everything. But to me, this is always, an end game, which I'm not at, right? And I'm not close to being at. But my end game was retirement. So like when you start to work, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I love doing things, but do you always love the work that you're in? I mean, some people, I think you probably do, right? But I don't know if everyone's as lucky, to always do what they love. And so me was, building something that could eventually be passed on to my kids. Someone else can run, but maybe eventually I could step away. Yeah. So my milestones is time, not money. And it was realizing when, not the company could run itself without me there, but when it could actually grow without me there. Could I go away for 2 weeks and I came back? An initiative was accomplished. Yeah. Now that was my first $1 million.
Yeah.
Right. To me. So, and I think with that mindset, the millions are kind of like, they come, the $1 million comes, right? Because you're building it to get there. So, but money's great.
Yeah.
But time
is the most important thing.
Is just the most important thing. And then, I've always said, I make this joke like, oh, why do you do this? I do this because I'm lazy. And they're like, okay, we know you. And you're not lazy. Well, but you're not, we'll see. I go, we'll see when I'm 65. If you're going to still like me.
Yeah.
If I retired and I don't have to work again and you're going to be like, man, you are lazy. Like, you saw what you did. I put the work in to be lazy.
Yeah.
I put the work in to be lazy. So time is my money.
Yeah.
That's my $1 million.
I think this is a fantastic answer for that. But on the other side of it too, like for anybody that are what they're watching this video and they're struggling to make their first million, what are some of the tactical things that they can do to grow their business from $2,300
Yeah.
to making that first $1 million in revenue?
Yeah. So, the idea, you know, I- every idea I had. So I started two businesses, right? I mean, you probably could imagine since I was a kid, all I was made to do is run a business. I mean, it was. I just didn't have a chance to do it till I was in my 30s, right? Because it takes, you know, discipline. I had, remember, I had to work. I wasn't going to take a leap of faith and put my kids and family at risk. It's rough. You know, it's the tactical thing to do to make your first million. Uh, it is saying this idea is terrible. I mean, you gotta have, it's not failing 20 times. I hate that. I know it's okay. It's okay to be an entrepreneur and to have failures. I love it. Great. I'm not, but I hate for someone to think that it has to be that way. I feel like sometimes people jump into an idea too quickly. Um, Evaluate the idea to say how terrible it is. And if you really can try to break it down in every fashion you can, and you just can't prove that it's a bad idea, then move forward. Spreadsheet it out, run every scenario. Okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? You go online and say, I want to search for a three-headed lizard with red, and you're going to find an image of it, right? Because when you're looking for it and you want someone to tell you it's there, you're going to find it.
Mhm.
So I think we get in this thing. I have this great idea, and all your friends, they like you. So they're like, oh, it's a great idea. And everyone's, what a great idea. It's only going to be you who's really going to go and say, like, I'm going to show this a terrible idea. And so that's what I did with both of these businesses is I spent hours just showing how terrible of an idea this was and how there's no way it's going to make any money. And when I could not prove that, then I moved forward, right? With a client base. So that's it, So with a potential client base, I think that's the key to
Yeah.
me. For me,
Yeah.
that's what worked for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember we having that conversation talking about that. That was a really, I guess, eye opener and really big key takeaway that I had from you. Kind of flip it on its head and kind of take a different approach, because most of the entrepreneurs out there, they when they have the new idea, what they are going to do is to try to convince everybody that it's a great idea. But taking it the other way, I think it's like a very smart way to do it.
Yeah.
Try to figure out, why it is a terrible idea. And if you cannot like, prove that, then move forward. That's
Yeah.
that's a,
And I think I got that from my dad. There was a lot of frustrating times on the porch sitting with my dad, telling him something, and then all of a sudden he's just playing devil's advocate, and I'm like, I mean, like I'm just telling you a story, and I don't know that I really got maybe what he was doing, or if I'm sure he did, because but that's really what it is. It's like, just thinking the other side, right? Thinking the other side of it. But when it's in business, it's strategic. Spreadsheet it out and run the numbers and change all the variables. It's easy to do because at the end, like I like to make multi-part spreadsheets. And so what I do, I make a spreadsheet. I do page one. I put all the fixed costs and all the variables. And then I do like another page. I put all the things. But on the last page is where I put like profit, right? And then I don't go to the last page, right? So I do all the formulas. I love, some, it might be hard for people to do, but it's not that hard if you go online. It's not complicated math. It's multiplication, division. It's not that complicated, but, and then you change your variables and you don't even see the profit number. And then you do it and you go, okay, ooh, this is a good one. And then you go to the page, you're like, oh, yeah, that was that's still profitable. Okay. I'm gonna mess this guy up this time, you know. And then you go in and say, okay, so now this just happened, and rent just went up, and this just happened, and okay, that's too much. Okay, all right. Click on the tab. It's like, okay, whoa, we broke even. So I'm trying to turn this thing on its head, and like none of these things are gonna happen.
Yeah.
That's interesting, right? That's the numbers way to do it. Obviously, there's a lot of other things you need to look at, but I think making a spreadsheet, putting your variables in, putting your expected number of customers, your sell price, all that stuff, and then on another sheet for just one cell that's a profit, and then just change all the stuff, and then when you like, okay, and then do the same thing on the good side. Okay, what if I really blow it out? Because you know you need the motivation. Oh my God, $1 million. That's how I'm going to do it. You know, but the other one's the one I think has more value.
Yeah. You just shared a little bit about your family, and you shared something that I thought that was very interesting. That you grew up, your family had like I think it was your granddad, 22 siblings.
Yeah, my grandmother had 22 brothers and sisters. She was born in Key West. Yeah, and they all came to Tampa. So I forget how many made it to adulthood, but in the teens, right? You know, yeah, so big family here. So
Yeah,
crazy Cuban parties.
I love it. How is it to grow up with so many different like family members?
Yeah, you know, I think when they talk about school, education, all this, it's surround yourself with people and experiences,
Hmm.
and hearing and looking at the drama and the not drama, and you know, you just see this kid, see him making a change, see him grow up, see them. It's like a microcosm of life that you really get to see a little closer. You know, now I would imagine even now, so social media, it's really hard to you can get lost in like the fakeness. I think like living and having a big family like this now, I think could even be more impactful
Hmm.
because you kind of can see underneath the covers a little more than maybe some of the stuff that's out there today. You know, not knowing what's real and what's not real. So you just got a real sense of reality. And I don't know other cultures, but I know the Cuban culture. You know, they pretty much, oh man, you know, you've been eating well, you know. Oh, thank you. You know
Same
what
with
I'm
the Haitian
saying? Yeah,
culture.
you know, so you know,
Yeah.
you're getting it straight. And
Hmm.
so, you know, if you're a jerk, you're gonna know you're a jerk, and there's no accidental of who you're becoming around family
Yeah.
because you know
Yeah.
they're gonna tell you. You
Yeah.
know, so I think that was a good that's you know good from that.
Yeah. We talked about your parents from that conversation too. And one other thing that we shared is education. Um, that or the things that your mom and parents did for you for education and the things that they did for me as well. So, would you say that education played a role in your success
Yeah,
today?
yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like, they think like, okay, don't go to school, don't do like college is not that important and doing anything like that. Um, what role did education and your parents instilling that in you did for you and your success?
You know, just the sacrifice alone. So you know, so you take they decided to send me to private school. My dad was a police officer, and my mom was a private school teacher. So school teachers, right? You know, maybe back then, you know, hopefully they're getting paid, you know, more now. I know that's always an issue, but back then, private school teachers made less than public school teachers. It wasn't a lot of money, right? So they borrowed money to send me to private school because they thought it was important. So if you just look at wow, what my parents are investing in me for my success, I mean, you're coming with something. It's the intangibles. Is it the math I learned in school? It's hard for me to know. Like, was I naturally a good student? Was I smart? Was I not? I have no idea. You know, I kind of like did whatever I could to get by to not get in trouble. I wasn't this academic student who studied and my goal was to make straight A's. Like, what could I do so my parents didn't get mad at me? You know, so I was a B student, right? That's what they wanted. That's what I made. But what are the intangibles that I got? who was I surrounded with? You know, in this case, a lot of successful families, a lot of wealthy families. I went to Jesuit high school, so I was very lucky. It's an incredible high school, and I really learned that I was going to be that one day, right? So it gave me something to aspire to, that I was going to be that one day that, you know, mm, I have, a bit of an ego, I'm going to say, maybe one day they're going to work for me, like, oh, you jerk, that, I'm taking the bus 40 just home from Jesuit, and you're driving your BMW, one day you'll work for me, not as a hater, just as a kid,
Hmm.
So I think there's different ways you get inspiration, but surrounding yourself by like-minded people, so college, what are you getting from that? Well, everyone's there sacrificing something and they're paying something, investing in their future. So just naturally, there's a sense that you're getting for that sacrifice that is beyond just the tangibles of education. Getting into the tangibles of it, that we can go back and forth. Who knows? I know I had a great education in high school and elementary school. I went to college. I got a 4-year degree. How much of it is applicable directly to what I do? I don't know. But I definitely know that, I wouldn't be where I am today, without that sacrifice that my parents made. So it's pivotal and key. I can't pinpoint what exactly you can carve out of it. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone can, but it's
Yeah.
better than. I'm not saying, I'm not going to knock homeschooling. Better than sitting at home. What I mean by that, on my own. I'm not. Homeschooling could work. You know, Getting out there. I'm very social too, so
Yeah.
sitting at home would have killed me. So I
Yeah.
get all my energy from
From
being
other
around people.
people. Yeah. Same
So it
here.
wouldn't have been great for me.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a fantastic 51 minutes so far. We are crossing to one of my favorite part of the show, which is the when I'm gonna ask you some questions, rapid fire questions.
All right.
So let me pull those questions over here. And again, you can share as much as you want on this, but so are you ready for the rapid
Let's
fire
do it. Let's
question?
try.
My goal for this too is to get some like really good reels from those as well. So um are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cool. The first question is trying to find the best one to get this started with. Yeah. Yep. 1 second. So the whole show will start from the top, as my brother suggested. So the first one that we talked about over here, I don't like that question. I'm not gonna ask that one. So what is the biggest misconception about fulfillment?
Hmm. Well, I guess fulfillment and what it can be, what we do, that's tough, right? So like what I do versus maybe what other people do, that it's kind of nuanced, right? It's you're kind of setting me up in a good way here, because it shouldn't be done my way. Like scalable doesn't mean vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
You got usually people start selling and fulfilling themselves, and they got to a certain point, and then they decide they need to outsource fulfillment. Don't change what got you there because of a limitation by a fulfillment company. So that's what I would say. Don't change what your customers loved about what you did because they're telling you it's the only way you can outsource fulfillment. Challenge it to do it the way you believed in from day one.
Yeah, love it. One of the big thing that we talked about in our conversation is around automation with human connection. So my next question: how do you balance automation with human connection?
Yeah, we are 90% human. So it's funny you asked the second question, and the first question. Well, how do you offer customization? with humans, right? So if I want to do automation, then I can't do any customization because I have to have them fit into exactly one way that I do things, right? So automation is used to me when I can say 95% of everything I do falls into this bucket. Now let me automate it. Maybe 90%, maybe 85, you know. So it all comes with automating, not at the sacrifice of agility. And so that's what you're asking yourself. If you automate it, great, more profitable. You know, what are the gains and what are the losses? It's typically agility that you're losing. To what end? So that's what I would say. How much agility are you losing?
Yeah. What's one decision that changed the trajectory of your company?
Write our own software. So, I mean, from the beginning, you know, there was arguments with other people that how are we going to go into fulfillment and not have experience in it and then think that we're also going to write our own software, right? So like, let's use off the shelf solution. It was a most challenging decision, and there are times that we said, "Why did we do this?" Because it was so difficult. But it's our whole differentiator and what makes us different today.
Fantastic. Why do you believe entrepreneurs don't have to fail first?
It's just not. It's not a form of failure. Isn't a formula for success. You know, I think that it's a byproduct of attempting something. Um, and I don't. I think that you can be methodical, and the more methodical you are, the less failures you're gonna have on the attempt. And not everyone has the time to be massively methodical, right? But with the right approach, I think that you could guarantee a level of success. I don't think. I think that I could look at a business and I could say that business will be successful to some extent, and I'm not going to be surprised that it failed. I probably ain't going to know it was going to. Just people don't want to ask the hard questions and come to realizations that maybe it was a bad idea. So I don't think you have to, you know?
Yeah. What is one thing that you do as a CEO that most other CEOs don't do?
Oh, well, yeah, that's a rough one. Um, I think there's so many different CEOs out there, you know, like I'm active, but I also, you know, empower people. That's a really, uh, I probably am over transparent. So, you know, so I think that, you know, I say everything that I'm thinking. So it has a certain taste, a certain type of person that can handle that. When I find that person, we're going to work together forever. Sometimes it could be rough
Yeah.
because, you know, I have, you know, very high expectations and I'm never satisfied. And then I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think I probably could maybe not say as much, but I'm not going to change that because I think that's what got me there. So
Yeah. I guess my follow up question to that is why is it so important to be transparent with your team members, your customers? You know, why is it so important to be transparent with other people?
well, you know, it's their livelihood, and that's it, bar none. Like it's not just mine. So like they're choosing to work for me, and if they don't know the whole picture, then I'm doing a disservice for the opportunities that they could have other than working for me. So if I'm not letting them know exactly what's going on, then the opportunity costs are missing out on by that lack of transparency is just selfish on my part. So the repercussions that are typically small of being transparent far outweigh to me uh, giving someone everything for them to make a decision for their family, right? Because that's what everyone's doing. Like every employee, like that's the thing, you know. It's like sometimes I walk in and I forget it's my company, you know, and you like you walk in and it's like, wait, this is like my company. Everyone there, right? They have a family they're providing for, and goals they're trying. And if it starts from me and I'm not transparent, how could they possibly make a decision that's correct if from the top they don't even know what they're getting into, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's really where I would just always want that,
Yeah.
So I try to give it.
Yeah. One question I always ask people is, what is the $1 million advice that you would give to anybody out there watching this video?
Yeah, it's going to be twofold, right? Prove it's a terrible idea, right? And know where your customers are going to come from. That's it. If you have those two things, it's guaranteed success. I believe that wholeheartedly. You got to focus on where are you going to get your customers from.
Awesome.
So that's it.
Yeah.
I said that 100 times.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
say it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Any parting advice?
No, just be careful, what you're asking for when you go into entrepreneurship. It's rough and it's lonely, and when you're super successful, people look at you and they're like, oh, look how easy he has it. I'm doing all the hard work and he's in the office. And when you're doing the work and you're wondering why you're working 80 hours a week and you haven't gotten paid for 2 years. Right. And it never seems to be this balance where, you're working medium and everyone loves you and so happy for your success, and so, you just, it's complicated. There's a lot to navigate and really know that, it's a 24/7 job. Right. And it's going to be somewhat lonely because you and maybe a couple other people, the only ones that are going to really understand that journey. Right. And just be comfortable in that. Right. And it's rough. Right. So I think I know that doesn't sound positive, but it is. I just know that. Right. And when you go into it, no, that's entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you balance running a $25 million company with your personal life?
Well, my wife and I work together, so that helps, right? Even though some people say, "How could you do that?" But you take time. Like you work hard, and then you've got to take time. Like you have to take time, and to live. You just got to do it. We took our first vacation. I took a 2-week vacation this year. It's the first time my wife and I ever did that. So think about it. College, oh, you can't do that. Graduate, too poor, right? Get married, just have new jobs, have kids. I mean, like when are you going to do it? So now my kids are 22 and 20, and we did it for the first time. And even that was a struggle, to be away from the business for that long. So, we had to put the right people in place to be confident to do that. So you can always have an excuse to not take the time, but I promise it'll be there when you get back. So just say next month, Thursday, Friday, I'm taking it off and put it on the calendar. You'll do all the work from now to then to cover those 2 days. Because if you've gotten that far, you know how to cover 2 days. You just got to book it. Just book it. Just book the hotel, non-refundable. Book a non-refundable flight and you'll figure it out. I think that's an easy way to force yourself to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your biggest philosophy on life and business?
Oh, the biggest. Boy, oh boy. So I think the one that everyone, if anyone's watching this, you don't know what you don't know, right? It's like, it's making uninformed decisions when we're completely uninformed in life. So having so much confidence when there's so much unknown, right? And so blindly like being confident, and living in your paradigm and not understanding there are others, right? So all of that is really, as you can go super focused to the Fulfillment Lab or in every decision, there's different takes and different philosophies and different ideas. So you have to be open-minded. You stay principled, and you stay your course. Which you have to understand, that there's a lot of unknowns out there, and you don't know what you don't know. And if you pursue what you don't know, then what you don't know becomes less. And if you keep making what you don't know less, then you're just going to become that much known, right? I know kind of, but in work, people make a decision all the time. Oh, I did this. Well, why'd you do that? Well, because of all these reasons. Okay, but did you know about this? Well, I didn't know about that. Right. So it's something new. You don't know what you don't know. So you've got to roll it upstream. You got to roll these ideas upstream because there's a lot to learn. So in business, I think that's a big one.
Yeah. What was the biggest advice you've ever received?
Oh my goodness, that's my biggest advice I've ever received. I thought it was going to be something funny I was going to come up with. I don't know. My biggest advice I've ever received. Well, that's one that
Yeah. Or what was the biggest lessons that you've learned that has paid you dividend over and over?
yeah, and really, one that I mentioned, was outgrowing your staff. That was probably the hardest one. I had great friends of mine that we started and they worked very hard, and we outgrew them. And we did a corporate cleanse, they call it. What? When I heard the concept of corporate cleanse, I was like, what a bunch of who does that? People get complacent, right? And not that you would go out and say, hey, I'm going to terminate people in a company, but all of a sudden you look at your company, you realize your payroll is 200% higher and you're doing 50% the work, and people get complacent. And those hard decisions, so I never would do a corporate cleanse. So that concept, big companies, they just go, okay, well, let's just chop everyone. And you're like, what are they doing? Well, they don't have HR issues because they're not actually making decisions on people. So it's easier for them. But, those tough decisions of like um, parting ways from great people that just became not good fits for your company and then trying to maintain relations with them afterwards, these are the things that, still every day, I remember everyone that, not everyone, depending on what level, but a lot of people that worked at the fulfillment lab, it's that's tough lessons,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. What is the next 5 years look like for Fulfillment Lab?
Yeah, so we just expanded to a new facility this week. We actually realized that we need more space than we got, so we're doing a quick secondary expansion in the same place. So that's really cool. We implemented some automation equipment, and we're doing the same thing in Salt Lake City next year. And then we're hoping to open a third facility in like the northeastern area, maybe Chicago, maybe not northeast, but Chicago, northern Kentucky area. So with that footprint, 3 facilities is probably where we'll grow and just continue probably being stronger in partnerships and continue to grow and doing what we're doing. But just the domestic footprint is just going to grow. Existing locations larger and possibly a third facility.
Awesome. What is your next biggest milestone for Fulfillment Lab, and what are you going to do to achieve that? I know that's a hard question.
Yeah, that's a hard one. Oof. Is it revenue goals? Is it number of clients? Is it, I think we've done really well on the medium and large clients, right? And but I think of marketing and servicing, the clients that are doing, your 20 to 50 shipments a day, 50 to 100 shipments a day, bringing on maybe 200-300 of those, that part of the business, I think, is like the next growth to really see that coming. The medium and large customers, they find us, they're like, oh my God, there's a breath of fresh air. Where have you been? So we have that nailed. It's how scaling the company to be able to handle the smaller companies and seeing that. And that's really what this marketing effort is doing. So, we're shooting to add 80 to 100 new clients, over the next 12 months in that 50 to 100 range. And then that's kind of going to be that pod model that I talked about. And once we see that, then we're going to know where that lands to then really amplify that. Once that's successful, then be able to take that to the next 500, 1,000 clients. But you got to start small with those smaller clients, because the smaller clients sometimes take more work than the big ones, right?
Absolutely.
So how do we navigate that? So that's kind of the challenge that we're at right now.
Yeah. Man, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show today. Learned a ton from you and really enjoyed our conversation. For anybody that is watching this that wants to get a hold of you, or that wants to work with you, that wants to partner with you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So Rick, RICK at thefulfillmentlab.com. Super easy. Rick Nelson, LinkedIn, so I think my cell phone's on my LinkedIn. Call me, text me. Everything's informal. I stay informal. All my clients, they have my cell phone number. They just never call me because our client service team does so well. But, I'm very active and I'd love to hear from anyone and talk to anyone. So,
Yeah.
so just reach out. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Rick, it was such a pleasure
Oh my
having you on
gosh.
the show. That
Yeah,
was a
great.
fantastic conversation. Thank you for coming on.
Good. I loved it. Thank
There you go. Please make sure to follow this guy on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions or even if you have any business or partnership opportunities for him, to reach out, it's Rick at thefulfillmentlab.com.
That's correct.
There you have it. Stay blessed. Let's go, baby. It's fire.